you know Oda is cooking up something fierce when the narrator starts to pop off for an extended amount of time. That's very, very rare. And so far, it has been a great start to the final saga of One Piece. And mind you, the main Marine / CP0 fleet of 100 plus ships hasn't even arrived yet, let alone all the madness that's going on with Law and Blackbeard, Kid trying to pull up on Elbaf, and of course, whatever the Cross Guild are doing off screen somewhere having fun. But there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. And this chapter, we have made a big stride in this arc. We know who the traitor is. Squatted out, intimidating us all held in a very fluffy, bubbly way, but at the same time, sinister, almost like an old school Attack on Titan sinister when it was good, when it was real good. So if you want to see my reaction to all that fun stuff, you know where to go. Of course, my Cold Requiem channel, link in the box below, and as well on my twitch.tv channel for the full reaction plus the post tier 3 discussion and all kind of stuff. And as per usual, we're gonna break down this chapter review by its 3 main components. Number 1, the pace and structure. Number 2, the character components. And then number 3, the story progression components. Let's get right into it. So when it comes to the chapter structure and pace, this chapter has a total of 7 parts to it. Number 1 is the main lab, Building B, 2nd floor, with Jinbei and Stussy in conjunction with Sentomaru in the Fabio phase. That's all number 1. Number 2 is the main lab building again, Building C, 3rd floor, with Frankie's group, or what's left of them. Then we have number 3, the Building A, 2nd floor, with Robin's group. Number 4 is Building A again, 3rd floor, with Sanji's group. Number 5, Building A again, 4th floor, with Luffy's group. Part 6 is what I'm dubbing as narration or narrator hour. And then number 7 is a cut to the old Devil Fruit research lab basement floor with Vegapunk and York. So this chapter had a lot of cuts across the island, but it does make a lot of sense since we literally have the main party split into like 5 different groups, let alone Sentomaru and outside things going on as well. So it does make sense we have 7 parts, and honest to God, it is One Piece standard because Oda loves splitting up the Strat crew. He just loves doing it. And on that note, when it came to splitting apart various things, I did want to do that for the narrative hour, where you could argue that some of those sections could be different segments since they cover different things like Bonnie and a flashback and marine reactions. But I figure just general to one section as the narration hour because it's not normal for Oda to actually have the narrator go through an entire section like that of a chapter. So in reality, you could argue it's like 10 or 11 parts, but I think it's fair to say, you know, just make it all one big thing as narration hour. Overall, I think it's a lot of sections in a general sense, but it is standard for Oda's formula. So I would say when it comes to pace and structure, it's overall okay. The character components for this chapter, really short, like really short. Only 2 characters get anything of value in this chapter, of actual substantive value. Number 1, of course, Sanji. My main man, Giga Chad Sanji. Sanji's able to completely front tank an attack from S-Shark with his arms folded to the face, and he's not even phased at all. Quote unquote, the power of love, kind of going on the same lines as Garp Chujo. So this is more insight as to how tanky Sanji is when he activates that germ of goodness, or of course, the power, the true power of love. And you can argue it's in the same vein as, let's say, Queen trying to cut Sanji's head off, but the sword breaks. But because Sanji is right now dealing with the Seraphim, you can argue that that attack, that punch, is stronger, probably way stronger than Queen trying to cut his head off. But nonetheless, Sanji just front tanked it, cigarette not even damaged, just kept it pushing. So Sanji's defense really shining here like the sun, particularly when someone like, or something like S-Shark, who was supposed to be not all that personality, feeling driven, that kind of stuff, is sweating because it's shocked to see Sanji take that attack full bore and not even be phased. But I also have to wonder, why is Sanji doing that in the first place? Why is Sanji just standing there with his arms folded like this to take the attack? Is it because, let's say, Nami, Brook, and Edison are like out of commission in a way, where Nami, you can argue, necessarily can't fight just to protect Brook, who's off to find Vegapunk via the soul thing, and then Edison is out of commission just in general. So is he going to, let's say, just stand there and take blows consistently from S-Shark, or is it because potentially Sanji is being a little bit too arrogant? When his eyebrows transform into a 6 in the last chapter, I do wonder if that was an indication of some of that Germa, that scumbag, kind of came to the forefront a little bit, and he's being overly confident against S-Shark. That might be possible, but we'll have to wait and see how time goes on. Number 2, of course, obviously, clearly, Chopper. No, York. York is the traitor. Nonchalant way of going about all her deeds, and it's pretty foul. And for the most part, we've seen in the story so far, she was like somewhat of an airhead. All she's done so far was eat, defecate, and sleep. EDS, not EDP, EDS. And now we find out, boom, actually, no. It was me all along. So when S-Snake did petrify her, that was part of the plan. And voila, here she is squatting in front of Vegapunk. Again, very nonchalant, even when she killed Shaka. So she talked about Shaka like, wow, Vegapunk, you saw what he would say, lol, but he can't say it now because he's dead. Okay, that's kind of freaky. And the fact that she believes that only one Vegapunk is necessary in the world just shows you her extreme selfishness. You may think, let's say in the same vein as Kaido in Wano Country, when he said to Momonosuke, there's only room for one dragon in the world, but that's not the same energy you get here. You can argue it's actually way similar to what a 10 Yubito would do. Like, for example, St. Charlos. St. Charlos, even during the reverie, he tried to capture Shirahoshi. The greed, the selfishness, all these things do line up a lot with York, at least I'd argue so far. And York wants to be one of them. So York's character expands now in a pretty big way, and moving forward, we'll see how she operates throughout the rest of this arc. But when it comes to character, York for damn sure is the main star of this chapter. And that's it when it comes to the character section of this video. Now we have the story components of this chapter. Number 1, of course, Judge and Caesar Clown. Neo Mads is formed. Now, I'm not too sure if that's going to play any role in the current arc right now, but the stuff with Mads in the cover story has aligned so well with the ongoing content of the story in real time that there could be a chance that Neo Mads does pull up at some point in later in this arc. Keep in mind that what's happening right now with Judge the Clown, that's been going on, let's say, during Wano Country in the timeline. So there is a possibility that they will pull up at some point and do something, but I'm gonna say very, very, very unlikely. That's number 1. Number 2, of course, Sentomaru finds out via Stussy that Kizaru and a massive force is coming. So the government apparently is treating this worse than Ohara. So now that he has information, and now the folks heard about this, they're like, okay, fine. Now it's time to evacuate, and the citizens are now in the process of leaving. So it won't be a full-on genocide like what we saw in Ohara, which does make sense because Oda here's the thing, right? We all know that Oda a lot of times in real time is soft. It is what it is. But in flashbacks, he is a genocidal maniac. He will kill swaths. He will kill millions of people just to push forward a narrative, okay? Ohara, Lost flashback. I mean, he likes killing people a lot in flashbacks. But we're in real time now, so civilians, get out of here. After that, number 3, Pythagoras. Another Vegapunk hits the floor. Potentially DAD. Probably actually, because for some reason, it's kind of weird. I'm not sure why this happened, but we do have that crunch, and then Frankie yells, Pythagoras! And there's an explosion. So it feels kind of weird that there'd be an explosion at that point in time. I kind of feel like maybe that was a play on his part to try and escape, or like a last-ditch effort, like a martyrdom. Maybe that was a martyrdom thing. I'm not too sure why there was an explosion, but we may find out later on as to why it was the case. But that being said, Pythagoras is probably dead. Now, of course, keep in mind, this is Oda, real time, so he could pull the Pell. You never know. Pell, all right? Waddle Falcon would come back from a nuke. Okay, fair enough. That could easily happen. But right now, Oda seems to be, hey, Final Saga, let's change the tone for a bit. Cats are gonna die. So let's see. After this is gonna be Robin. Robin's team is likely going to the old Devil Fruit lab in the basement. Not too sure, but again, still likely. After that is S-Hawk. Also quite strange too. S-Hawk leaves the 4th floor building A. Somehow Zoro and Kaku lost sight of him, and then Luffy has to point that out. Like, wait, hold on, like, where is he? And then now Zoro and Kaku give chase, or Zoro / Usopp give chase. That was also, I think, kind of weird. I don't know how he kind of slithered out. We can understand why he's doing it, because he's changing targets, which is fine. But at the same time, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't know where he went, unless S-Bear blipped him. After that, Bonnie sees more, potentially all of Kuma's memories within that giant memory bubble. I'm hoping it's not all, because I do want to see what's going on there in real time, but there's a good chance here that we're gonna get a retelling of these events through Bonnie later on in the story. After this, of course, our big thing for sure is the narrator. The narrator explains what's been happening for the past 3 months. The Marines, according to the narrator, were already expecting a full-out war on Egghead Island despite Luffy's involvement. So when they were going there, to begin with, they already had a large amount of ships with them. So it's possible that when we find out in 1076 that it's over 100 warships, that could have been the plan from the very beginning, because they, again, expected all-out war with the advanced tech of Egghead Island. But it could also be the case here that in 1070, when Kizaru found out that Yonko Luffy, Mugiwara, was on Egghead Island, and he said, give me all the warships, that could have been how it swelled to 100 plus. So maybe, let's say, initially it's gonna be 50, but now it's like 100 plus because of Luffy's involvement. So whether it is or isn't, the fact of the matter is that they had way more than a Buster Call coming to Egghead Island because of the power of this country. Why is that important? Because in a general sense, that should belong to the Marines and the world government in the future. That's, they even have, for the first time on the move, a Gorosei going there, because they value that tech, those weapons, those assets so much, because they're gonna be what they need to stand their ground Florida style against potentially the entire world that is enraged with them, the world government. You can see the power of those assets just by Kizaru mobilizing so many ships to go in the first place. The second main point here, of course, that the narrator does note to how the events of Egghead Island incident are going to shock the world in a way no one ever saw coming. Of course, in the same way, no one thought that Luffy and company would take down Kaido and Big Mom. It looks like we'll also have another major, like, whoa, but this time ideally involving the Marines themselves, since they're pulling up. It does a lot of sense here that in a lot of ways, Egghead Island is going to be the Shibondi archipelago of the Final Saga. Absolutely. And then, of course, finally, end the chapter, York squatted out, hey Stella, I'm the traitor, and guess what? I want to be a celestial dragon. Okay. And guess what? There's only room for one Vegapunk. So, York, the greed, living up to her name in spades, pretty scary, pretty big, pretty intimidating. And there's a chance here where York also dies in this arc. Will all the Vegapunks die in this arc? I want to say no, because it kind of feels like a waste. But at the same time, Vegapunk knows like too much information about the Ohara stuff, and the Straw Hats, in their own way, should find this stuff out. Of course, let's say the library of Ohara that's on Elbaf real poneglyph, like all that stuff. And you can argue Vegapunk being on the Strat ship, like all of them, or a few of them even, would take away from a lot of the tech-related stuff that guys like Usopp and mainly Frankie would do. So we have things that plays out in the future, but is there a chance all of them die? Potentially, yeah, that is possible. So let's wait and see. But that is it when it comes to the story progression components of this chapter. So final thoughts. Overall, yes, I thought it was a good chapter for sure. I would say the York stuff for the reveal was a good reveal of who the traitor was. Now let's say S Flamingo or another version of Stussy. Like there were possibilities. Let's say it was the Punk Records itself. These things for me I thought were a bit out there. And even though I did like the Bluno idea, if there was gonna be a traitor, I did want it to be like another Vegapunk, and voila, boom, York is our girl. For me, she was on the bottom rung of who could be the traitor or not, and the fact that she's so nonchalant about it, she's so chill about it, that does add another layer of terror for damn sure. Obviously, big fan of Giga Chat Sanji, the power of love, very, very strong. So you can argue that Garp gets indirect buff. Garp gets an indirect buff via Sanji, showing the power of love, absolutely. And obviously, the narrator's comments. What could happen? I think at a baseline, it would not surprise me, in the same vein as Shibondi, it would not surprise me, you would have Luffy shock the living hell out of St. J. Garcia Saturn, one of the quote gods of the world. Because it was one thing smacking a Tenryubito, but if the world finds out that Luffy actually punched St. J. Garcia Saturn, on top of knowing that there are several kingdoms in open rebellion against world government because of Sabo's actions, that would only spur these countries and even more countries to fight against world government, because they're starting to realize, hold on, they're not gods, they're not omnipotent, they can be being. The same way during Skypiea, when he arrived there at the Arc Maxim, what makes you a god, dude? Well, what makes them a god? Let me show you why they're not gods. So we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see how this plays out in the future. But overall, I think at a minimum, St. J. Garcia Saturn could be Bellamy 2.0, and I'll give this chapter rating of a nice 7.5 out of 10. So on that note, let me know your stance on this chapter of One Piece. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell to join the notification squad. I'm gonna catch you cats on the flip side.